Namaste. Today we have a panel discussion on a very important topic regarding Shankara's Advaita Vedanta. We see that there are discussions about certain Vaggayakaras in Carnatic music, already known as Shankara Advaita Swamijis like Sadashiva Brahmendra Yogi. And with regard to some others, there is this opinion that there are Advaitic thoughts in those texts, in the lyrical texts. And with regard to some Vaggayakaras like Tyagaraja, there is this understanding that they are Nada Brahma, he is a Nada Brahma yogi. And the connection between his Nada Brahma Yoga and Nada Brahma Sadhana and Advaita is also an interesting topic. There is a huge scope for discussing both the Dhatu and Matu aspects, the musical and textual aspects of the kritis of several Carnatic music Vaggayakaras. The writers who compose their songs and also compose their music at the same time. Today, we have on our panel experts in this area. All the three are Carnatic musicians and musicologists. Dr. Mridula Ashwin is a Sanskrit Shastric scholar who participates in Shastrartha Charchas, Vakyartha Sadas. Dr. Mridula ji, can you switch on your video? Yes. Dr. Mridula Ashwin is a very young but very sound and role model Sanskrit scholar. She studied Vyakarana and Advaita Vedanta, and she participates in Vakyartha Sadas also. The beautiful combination of such a sound, wide and deep Sanskrit scholarship and also expertise in Carnatic music, it is very rare, and we see that in this young scholar, Dr. Mridula Ashwin. She has many awards to her credit, many achievements in her both Sanskrit studies and Carnatic music to her credit. She has been felicitated as a Carnatic musician on many stages. She has been given opportunity for concert on very prestigious stages in different parts of India for her Carnatic music performance. And today she is going to, though she can cover other Vaggayakaras also, for the sake of division of work, she has chosen Sadashiva Brahmendra Yogi as her topic. And then we have Dr. Duddu Radhika Garu, who, Radhika Garu, can you switch on your video, please? Radhika ji has done her PhD on Tyagaraja. She, as a Carnatic musician, is a very tall figure. She has achieved a lot in her Carnatic music concerts, practice, and she is a scholar on the musicology side and also on the musician side, performance side. She does experiments in Carnatic music almost every day. And as we can see from her PhD and all her publications, she is a deep scholar, also an academician also at the same time. So this, we have Again, another combination of an academically attained scholar and a wonderful performer of Carnatic music. Though she can cover all other Vagyakaras also, she has covered all of them during her performances. She, like many Carnatic musicians, she chooses different genres of Carnatic music, and she showcases different Vagyakaras in her concerts. But today, for the sake of division of work in the panel, she chose her PhD topic, Tyagaraja, for the discussion. Welcome, Dr. Radhika Garu, for the panel. And we have another young scholar and musicologist, Sri Karthik Garu, Karthik Shankar. Sri Karthik Garu, please switch on your video. He is a wonderful scholar of several Indic aspects, Indic culture, Indic darshana, spiritual practices. He too has expertise with regard to many Vagyakaras of Carnatic music. But he today chose his favorite topic among Carnatic musicians, Muthuswami Dikshitar. And Dikshitar Kritis, as people know, have their own charm. And Dikshitar has his own charm with regard to the spiritual depth in the Kritis that he composed. As Mridula Ashwinji was reminding during our conversation before this panel discussion, we have to distinguish between two kinds of raga compositions today. With regard to some older Vagyakaras like Sadashiva Brahmendra, the music composition by the Vagyakara himself or herself is not surviving. Because of that, every time the practitioners, the concert givers, they compose ragas, and it also depends on what in the North Indian parlance is called gharana, that is the Guru Shishya Parampara in the families. Each Guru composes a particular raga in a particular way to a particular kriti, and it goes on in the tradition, Guru Shishya Parampara. But with regard to the most recent ones, we have the raga composition well preserved also. Tyagaraja is one such example. Tyagaraja, for very interesting reasons, actually, because of the high adoration we have for Tyagaraja, we never believe that he was a recent Vakyaka. Whenever somebody gets elevation in worship, he gets antiquated. People think that probably he was very ancient. But historically, Tyagaraja is, he comes from a very recent time. And by that time, already preservation in the form of notation was already developing. And some amount of preservation through notation, some amount of preservation through very recent Guru Shishya Parampara has happened with regard to Tyagaraja. That is why there is not much variation in the composition with regard to Tyagaraja's kritis. Same with Muthuswami Dikshitar. With Muthuswami Dikshitar, actually, what is interesting is that he was heavily influenced by Western music also. People talk so much about his influence on him of Western music orchestra and all that also. So, because he is such a recent one, there is not much possibility of raga compositions with regard to Muthuswami Dikshitar. So, these three varieties of Vagyakaras today we have chosen for discussion. We'll be going in rounds from in this order itself, Mridula ji, Radhika ji, and Karthik ji, from Sadashiva Brahmendra, who is more ancient than these two. and to Duddu Radhika ji and up to Karthik. So there will be issues that will be raised by me from time to time, and each of them will keep responding to those issues. So just to break the ice, let us start with a very general question to each of these scholars and musicians. Mridulaji, what are the pointers that give the impression in the lyrics and the singing style of Sadashiva Brahmendra towards Advaita Vedanta?
Namaskaram. First of all, I would like to thank Indica Academy for giving me this opportunity and all of us a place to discuss such a wonderful topic. I place my regards to the moderator, Dr. Nagaraj Paturi ji, who is taking forward this discussion in a very pointed way. As Sir has asked, Sadashiva Brahmendra Yogi, he was, let me first bring to you the factor that he was a predecessor to the famed trinity of Carnatic music. He was, in that way, he was not very too early, rather he was just before the trinity emerged. So his period was around mid 17th to 18th century. Unfortunately, he has passed away just before the earliest of the Trinity, the oldest of the Trinity, that is Sri Shyama Shastri, was born. Therefore, we can see that Carnatic music at that point of time was something that was nurtured by the earlier Vagyakaras like Sri Annamacharya, Sri Bhakta Ramadasa and others. And Sri Sadashiva Brahmendra Yati, belonging to the very fertile region with respect to Sangeetam, that is near to Madurai, the Tanjavur belt was such a heaven for Karnataka Sangeetam that although he was a philosopher, he was a sannyasin and an author of many Shastra works, he chose to also compose in the genre of Kritis, so that his ideas of philosophy of Vedanta could be carried over to the people in a more attractive manner through Sangeetam. Now, coming to the question asked by Nagaraj ji as to the pointers of Advaita Vedanta in Sri Sadashiva Brahmendra Yati's works, of course, we do have direct pointers. We have the usage of phrases like Abheda, Advaya, and so on, Akhanda, which are explicitly denoting the philosophy that he adhered to. For example, in the Kirtana, Brahmaivaham Kila, he has used this word Advayam. In the last Charanam, he says, Swaprakash Shivam Advayam Abhayam Advayam Abhayam Nishpratarkyamana Payamakayam Brahmaivaham Kila. Here by the word Advayam, as well as when he says Brahmaivaham Kila, indeed I am Brahman himself, I am that Parabrahman himself. Chinmaya Bodhananda Ghanam. Chinmaya Bodhananda Ghanam Tad Brahmaivaham Kila. So the import of Tat Brahmaivaham Kila. So here we can possibly interpret it as a conglomeration of the two Mahavakyas, Tattvamasi and Aham Brahmasmi. He says Brahmaivaham Kila, Guru Kripaya, and Tat Brahma Aham. So he tries to correlate the two Mahavakyas there. It's not just in the other person sense of Tat Tvam Asi, rather he brings it into the experiential mode. So these are the direct pointers to Advaita, the Advaita Vedanta philosophy that Yati carried. And the other way through which we can strongly place that his kritis were Advaitic in nature are through the Shastra Granthas that he has authored. He has authored the Brahma Sutra Vritti, called as Brahma Tattva Prakasha. And he has also authored a commentary on the Yoga Sutra, Patanjala Yoga Sutras. He has the Atma Vidya Vilasa and some other, the Advaita Rasamanjari. These are some of the popular Shastra works. So through these two parameters, we can establish that his kritis were indicative of Advaita Vedanta.
Thank you very much, Mridulaji. In fact, whenever I see the kritis of Sadashiva Brahmendra Yati, I see that he has brought folk mystic song composition into Sanskrit. The way folk mystic songs in Telugu, they use the word tattvams. They call them tattvams. So it is a tattvam style composition that we see in Sadashiva Brahmendra Yati. Just as in all the mystic songs in the folk lyrics, we have addressing the mind, manasa, hey manasa, manasa sancharare, hey manasa sancharare brahmani. He says that kind of style we see in him. So that bridging the folk and the classical, the common popular avadhuta style of life and a Pithadipati type of style, that kind of bridging we see in Sadashiva Brahmendra Yogin. And now we move on to Dr. Duddu Radhika ji. With regard to Sadashiva Brahmendra Yogi, because people know that he was already an Advaita Swami, pointers are very easy. But how is it possible with regard to Tyagaraja that we have some direct, very specific indicators for his Advaita Vedanta?
Namaskaram. Namaskaram to one and all. First of all, I would like to thank Dr. Nagaraj Patur Garu for giving me the wonderful opportunity to participate in this panel discussion. And it is the first panel discussion to me. So I've already participated in Indica Academy. I think it's in 2019 or so. So this is the first experience. So please excuse me, whatever I share my views with you. Coming to Tyagaraja Advaita Bhava in his compositions, Nadopasana itself is a Advaita. Pranavanada is also known as the Onkara. Which has Akara, Ukara, Makara, Shabdas. When one understands the secret of the Pranavanada, then one can tame the mind with the aid of Nada so that we can escape from Maya or illusion. Through Nadopasana, one can realize self by destroying the mind and its vasanas. Actually, Omkaram is again said to be two types. One is Varnatmikam, that is the Saguna Rupa. Second one is Shabdatmikam, that is Nirguna Rupa, formless. Omkaram is Sabdatmika Parabrahma Swarupam. And from Omkaram, 7 notes are produced. And also refers this in his composition, Mokshamu Galada, when he says, Tyagaraja says, Prananala Samyogamuche. Let me see the lyrics. Prananala Samyogam Valla Pranava Nadamu Saptaswarmulai Paraga Veena Vadana Loludai Shiva Mano Vidha Merugaru Tyagaraja Vinta. In Charanam, Tyagaraja deals with the origin of 7 notes and says that Omkara Nada manifests as 7 swara by the fusion of vital force and energy. So this is the blissful state of Lord Shiva. There are some kritis which also point Advaita Bhava in his kritis. Let me Nadopasanache, it is in the Raga Begada. Nadopasanache Shankara Narayana Vidhulu Velasiri O Manasa Vedodharulu Veda Titulu Viswamella Nindi Undedi Varalu Mantratmulu Yantra Tantratmulu Mari Mantramulanniyu Kalavarulu Tantrilaya Swararaga Vilolulu Tyagaraja Vandyulu Swatantrulu. Nadopasana means worship through Nada. Tyagaraja considered it to be the path to spiritual salvation. In his Kriti Nadopasana, he expresses that even the great gods practice Nadopasana. O mind, the Trinity, Shankara, Narayana, and Brahma, attained distinction by means of worshipful service to the art and science of music. Another example, Sangeeta Ratnakara, the 13th century treatise on music by Sarangdeva states, let the Nada Brahma which pervades the entire universe, which is of eternal joy and which is the prime cause of all life, be worshipped. Tyagaraja strongly believed this, the concept of Nadopasana. In his Kriti, Ni Bhakti Bhagya Sudha Nide De Janmam Bhu Bharamugani Sura Bhusurulai Janminchina Vedoktambau Karmamu Veta Kalgu Gata Gatamau Nadatmaka Tyagaraja Nadha Prameya Sada. In his Kriti, the rituals elaborated in the Vedic scriptures result in rebirth and the attendant mystery. O master of Tyagaraja, you are the embodiment of the musical sound. So this is the way how Tyagaraja expresses his Advaita Bhava in this.
Thank you, Radhika ji. There always has been this discussion about Vishnu and Shiva, Shaiva and Vaishnava being two sectarian schools of thought, and Tyagaraja is popularly viewed as a Rama Bhakta. But his mudra, Tyagaraja Nuta, actually is saying that Shiva is a Rama Bhakta.
Yes.
Tyagaraja is actually Shiva, Dakshinamurti. Tyagaraja is the name of Dakshinamurti. And it is a pun on his own personal name and the name of Dakshinamurti that he is saying he is Tyagaraja Nuta. So Shiva is a Rama Bhakta and Rama is a Shiva Bhakta. This kind of Shaiva Vaishnava assimilation is possible only in Advaita Vedanta. In all other Bhakti Vedantas, predominantly they are Vaishnava. And there is this whole Shaiva school. But you have, for example, both Rama and Shankara are Nadatanu. Nadatanum Anisham Shankaram Bhaja. Shankara is also Nadatanu and Rama is also Nadatanu for Tyagaraja. So that kind of merger is also possible only in Advaita Vedanta. That's Radhika ji, probably that you agree that that's another pointer of Tyagaraja being an Advaiti in practice. Sri Karthik ji, now the same question when brought to you, what do you think are the immediate pointers of Advaita sadhana in a Vagyakara who appears generally to be a Guha oriented, Guha devoted Kritikara? So Kumara, Subramanya, Bhakti seems to be predominant, but how can we see Advaita Vedanta in these critics?
Namaskaram. I thank Indica Academy for this wonderful opportunity and especially to talk about my very favorite Vagyakara, that is Swami Dikshitar. And the first question itself posed by Nagaraj sir is very thought-provoking. And when I sat to do some little homework on the subject, I do not know what to speak and what not to speak. There is so much to elaborate about each and every topic that we have taken up for discussion. So when we take about quick Advaitic pointers, Adi Shankara in his Brahmasutra Bhashya lists out basic qualities for the Brahman, which Mridula ji already touched upon lightly. The qualities can be Nitya, Shuddha, Buddha, Mukta, Satya, Sukshma, Sat, Vibhu. These are the general qualities that Shankara refers in his Brahmasutra Bhashya. So the same aspects have been dealt by Dikshitar. For instance, in the Kriti Anandeshwarena Samrakshitoham, Advaita Vedanta would not be complete without touching upon this Kriti, because even though the name may seem to be a Shaiva Kriti or a Shiva Kriti, every word, every syllable in this Kriti echoes Advaita Vedanta. He lists out the quality of Brahman that he views as Anandeshwara and the apt choice of Raga, which is Ananda Bhairavi. And he tells Nityena, Shuddhena, Buddhena, Muktena, very direct references he gives in Anandeshwarena Samrakshitoham. And the main thing in the Pallavi, he tells Chidananda Ruposmi, Brahmananda Ruposmi. Again, as Mridula ji tells, he quotes the Mahavakya. Again, in the Kamalamba Navavarna Kritis, there is the Panchama Avarana Kriti in Raga Bhairavi. There he lists out all the qualities that have been mentioned by Shankara in his Brahmasutra Bhashya. The Charanam begins with Nadamaya Sukshma Rupa. She is Nada and she's also Sukshma Rupa. Sukshma, the subtle form, is also mentioned by Shankara. It is again reflected by Dikshitar here. And I will be touching upon this Kriti again later sometime down the line. But he tells Abheda, Nitya, Shuddha, Buddha, Mukta, Satchidanandamaya, Para Advaita Maya Spurte. So the direct word Advaita is given by him. And another Kriti that I would like to touch upon here is Maya, the concept of Maya, which Radhika ji dealt upon. So in many of his Kritis that are in the Dvitiya Vibhakti, he always uses the word bhajare. I think that is a favorite word for him. So, for instance, Kamalambam bhajare, kalpita maya karya kalanam yajare. He asks us to be devoid of maya by meditating upon the Brahman. Here, in this case, it is Kamalamba. So, I feel these are direct pointers. There are many more pointers. For instance, he talks about how does one get Advaita Jnana? How can one get Advaita Jnana? He talks about the process of getting Advaita Jnana in the same Kritya Anandeshwarena Samrakshituham. He talks about Shravana, Manana, Nididhyasana, Samadhi, these stages. And after this, what does one attain? They attain Aparokshanubhava. He takes us into the blissful state that he is also in, because the raga itself is Ananda Bhairavi. So I feel these are the direct mention of Advaita in his compositions. I would like to conclude my part with a slice of Upanishad. Shankara strongly believed that Upanishads are the strongest fund of information about Advaita Vedanta, and how does one approach the Brahman, how does one understand the Abheda between Jiva and Brahman. So Dikshitar repeats the same phrase, he reinforces the same thing by telling Vedanta Vedyam in Sri Dakshinamurti. And the way the Vedanta Vedyam is there, Vedanta Vedyam. The word Vedyam merges into the Gandhara, indicates the Aikya of Jiva with the Brahman. So I feel these are the direct pointers for Dikshitar being a pure Advaitic scholar and Bhagavadpada.
Thank you very much. Those were wonderful pointers. Now, coming back to Mridulaji, I request all the panelists to keep singing whenever there is an opportunity. All of you are great singers. So the audience will definitely enjoy your musician skills. Mridulaji is already doing that. One very important question with regard to Sadashiva Brahmendra is whether the Advaita, which already Mridulaji has pointed out, the direct pointers in Sadashiva Brahmendra Kritis, is it Shankara Advaita or it is any other school of Advaita as evidenced in his compositions? Do we see a very specific minute nuance within Shankara Advaita in Sadashiva Brahmendra, or he deviates from Shankara Advaita?
Beautiful question, sir. There are many pointers that we can have from his compositions to support and validate the stand that he was indeed a follower of Shankara Advaita. By Shankara Advaita, let me clarify here that it is not just Shankaracharya's own views. I also mean the entire school that came after Shankaracharya, such as those views that have been put forward by his own Shishyas like Padmapada Acharya, Sureshwaracharya, and later Acharyas in the Advaita Vedanta school, that are in a way supportive and who have added to the concepts given by Shankaracharya but are not Viruddha. So I consider all those stances as being part of Shankara Advaita. And when we come to Sadashiva Brahmendra, yes, I definitely would say that he has followed in the footsteps of Shankaracharya by way of, first of all, Shankaracharya, when we see his own approach to Advaita Vedanta, he has given us works pertaining to both Jnana Marga, Karma Marga and Upasana Marga, that is Bhakti Marga. Now, even Sadashiva Brahmendra has done the same. He has given us lots of Shastra works that are to do with Jnana. with especially the Vritti on Brahma Sutra. And then coming to Karma Marga or Upasana Marga, we can see the Yoga Sutra Vrittis and other such works. And he has also given us a fund of compositions as well as stotras in the line of bhakti. So he has stood as a good example of how a person who has taken Shankaracharya as his inspiration could be. Rather, in fact, we see in Shankaracharya's own stotras and beautiful kavyas, like we have Shivananda Lahari, we have Saundarya Lahari. The beauty of Advaita is that whichever deity, whichever devata that Shankaracharya has taken up for that particular stotra, he or she, that devata is considered the supreme, Parabrahman. And the others become subordinate to that. Let it be the Subramanya Bhujangam, let it be the Saundarya Lahari. In the Saundarya Lahari, Shiva, Vishnu and the Trimurtis are subordinate to Paradevata. If you come to Subramanya Bhujangam, the other devatas, including his own mother and father, Shiva and Parvati, become subordinate to him. So this kind of approach, this particular philosophy has been so beautifully followed by Sadashiva Brahmendra. We find bhakti compositions like what Nagaraj ji has already pointed out here. The most popular, Manasa Sancharare Brahmani. Who is that Brahman here? Madashikhi Pinchalankrita Chikure Mahaniya Kapola Vijita Mukure. So the one who wears, who is adorning his hair with the peacock's feather, Madashikhi Pincha Alankrita Chikure, Mahaniya Kapola Vijita Mukure, and Sri Ramani Kucha Durga Vihare. So he is referring to Krishna here. And we have another beautiful and popular Kirtana. Pibare Ramarasam Rasane Pibare Ramarasam Shuddha. What does he say there? Shuddha Paramahamsa Ashramagitam Shuka Shaunaka Kaushika Mukhapitam Pibare Ramarasam. Here it is Rama who is ultimate. Earlier we saw Krishna as the Brahman. O Manasa, please Sanchara, please revel. He's asking his mind to go to understand, or by the word Sanchara we can get so many meanings. That's the beauty of Sanskrit language. He's asking the mind to roam in that Brahman, Sanchara. Because the mind is it is likened to a monkey. It roams here and there. Control it, bring it, and get it focused only on that Brahman in the form of Sri Krishna. Because Sri Krishna is the most attractive form of Parabrahman, Leela Murti. Therefore, the mind can easily be captivated by Sri Krishna. And he asks the Rasana, the tongue, to dwell and to immerse itself, to get the taste of Rama Rasa. Because it is that, with respect to Sri Rama, we find that the Nama is more important. Rama, 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 Rama. And even Shiva is asking Parvati, when Parvati asks regarding which is that one mantra which will emancipate us, he says, Sri Rama, Rama, Rameti, Rame, Rame, Manorame. So it is equivalent to the 1,000 names of the Lord. So that Nama is the most powerful. So he asks the Rasana how beautifully he takes the mind with reference to Krishna and he addresses the tongue with reference to Sri Rama. But all said and done, these are to do with the bhakti compositions. The kirtanas are to do with Krishna and Sri Rama. We also have Bruhi Mukundeti, again, Rasane. Now, when we come to the stotra part, he has done all the stotras like Shiva Manasa Puja stotram. Then there is another stotram called Navavarnamala stotram. These are to do with Shiva. The Ishtadevata here is Shiva. As well as all his Advaitic works, he has prefaced them with the Mangala Charanam to Shiva. Therefore, we find a beautiful coming together of Shaiva and Vaishnava matas. Out of the Shanmatas established by Shankara, we have these two coming together in his bhakti literature. So that is the pointer with respect to his thoughts and his interpretation. And there is another important thing that we have to establish when we want to talk about Shankara Advaita, in the sense he has given one particular kriti just to explain about the concept of adhyasa. We know how important adhyasa is to Shankaracharya. He has prefaced the Brahma Sutra Bhashyam with adhyasa Bhashyam. And one entire composition, Tadvat Jivatvam, is to do with adhyasa. I think I have taken much of the time of other panelists in this particular question, so I will keep this topic regarding adhyasa to maybe another round. I request Nagaraj to move forward.
Excellent. That's a great promise for us. We'll wait for it. And Radhika ji, with regard to Tyagaraja and many other such bhakti-oriented Vagyakaras, the frequent question that comes up is the discussion between Saguna and Nirguna Upasana. He had his Rama Panchayatana. He was known already as a Rama devotee. So obviously it is a Saguna Upasana only. We have many descriptive lyrics by him. Wonderful descriptions like Kanavantini Sri Ramani and all that. But did he also indicate any Nirguna orientedness in his lyrics? Can we take things like Vagavagaga Bhujinchadi Variki and such things as indicative of Nirguna? How do you deal with this frequent question of Saguna Nirguna controversy in Bhakti?
That means, sir, you are asking about that Tyagaraja is not is a Visishtadvaita or I couldn't get the question. Please.
No, the Advaita is a Nirguna Upasana system that we know already. So, do we have descriptions of non-form, Nirakara or Nirguna in Tyagaraja Kritis? Do you remember some Kritis with that kind of approach?
Yes. No. I've already told in the you asked me in the first session. I gave this one. Varnatmikam, that is Saguna. That is Varnatmikam, that is Saguna Rupa. Second one is Sabdatmakam. So that is Nirguna Rupa, that is harmless. So I've already told Omkaram is Sabdatmika Parabrahma Swarupa. So in the from Omkaram, 7 notes are produced. So we can take Sobhilu Saptaswara, Sapta Sundarula Bhajim Pave Manasa. in that Kriti,
Can you please sing it for us?
Shobhilo Sata Swara Shobhilo Sata Swara Sundarula Bhajimpade Manasa Shobhilo Sata Swara Nabhi Krikadhanasana Nabhi Krikadhanasana Nasa Nulayandu. Because the Nadam should come from Nabhi Hridaya Kanta Rasadula. That is, he told in the Anupallavi. Dararuksamabilalo Varagayatri Hridayamana Surabhu Suramana Samula Shubhatyagaraja Niyadashobilu Saptaswara Sundarula Vajimpade Manasa Shobilu Saptaswara. One minute, sir. Learn people say Sagunatmaka Sagunatmaka worship is the first step. I think it is the first step to realize God, and it is done for achievement. Nirguna upasana for jnanam. So that is the Nirguna Rupa means jnanam. So we can refer the Kriti Tyagaraja Yavarini Nirnayincherira. In the Kriti Yavarini Nirnayincherira Ninnetla Naradhincherira Naravaru. Yavarani Nira Incherira Ninnetla Radhincherira Naravaru Yavarani. In Anupallavi, Chivudano Madhavudano Kamala Bhavudano Parabrahmano Yavarani. In Charanam, Shiva Mantramunaku Ma Jivamu Madhava Mantra Munaku Madhava Mantramunaku Rajivamu Ivi Varamu Telisina Gavulaku Prakeda Vitaranagu Guna Vyaga Rajaga So he asks how people should worship the Supreme. Is it as Lord Shiva or Lord Vishnu or Lord Brahma or Supreme Brahman, Parabrahman? The Tyagaraja then states that for the Shiva mantram, I have told, Shiva mantram, Ma is the soul. And for Narayana mantram, Ma is the soul. So Ra is the soul. And that he salutes the people who realizes this fact. And that Rama is indeed the embodiment of all Saguna Swarupas. So this is the...
Thank you very much. That was wonderful. In Om Namo Narayanaya, Ra is the Jiva, and in Om Namah Shivaya you have Ma as the Jiva. If you start with Ma and then go to Ra, it is Mara. But you can commit from to Rama also. It is his Taraka mantra. For Tyagaraja, Rama is the Taraka mantra. So then he is saying, I worship those who know this secret. That Rama, the Taraka mantra is coming from the two important mantras, Namah Shivaya and Om Namo Narayana. Also wonderfully exposed Radhika ji. Now we move on to the same issue with regard to Dikshitar. Again, the same question. These are Bhakta Vagyakaras, and how Dikshitar would reconcile his Bhakti orientation with Advaita orientation.
Namaste. So just how Mridula ji in her previous round told about Sadashiva Brahmendra, and Nagaraj sir had told that they were folk tunes converted into Sanskritam. Dikshitar keeps proving that also in his compositions, that he is no normal human and he has some great spiritual instinct in him that made him compose these compositions. There is one kirtana that is only on the Nirguna Brahman that I will tell in the end. But before that, Shankara, Adi Shankara, we refer to him as Shanmata Acharya. So Dikshitar, as though paying respect for that particular title of Shankara, has composed on all the 6 principal deities of the Shanmatas. And all the deities are addressed as Advaita Swarupam. For instance, we have in Mahaganapatim in Todi Raga, he refers Ganapati as Upanishad Pratipadyam, referring to the Atharva Sirasha Upanishad of which appears in the Atharvana Veda. And then we have in Sri Mooladhara Chakra Vinayaka, if one needs to know something about Mahaganapati, Ganapati Upasana through the lens of Advaita Vedanta, this one Kirtana alone will suffice. And I don't think there can be anyone who would tell that one verse will be enough to understand the depth and meaning and the secrets that Dikshitar has, decorated this Kirtana with. Mula, the name of the Kirtana itself is quite esoteric. So Mooladhara Chakra, out of the Shad Chakras, Mooladhara is the primary first chakra that is under the spinal cord. So denoting that chakra, the whole composition lies only in the mantra sthai, does not go up. So, and wherever references to the Advaita comes, he beautifully incorporates the Sri Raga with the Sahitya. Just give me a second. Yeah. For instance, we have in the Anupallavi, Mula Ajnana Shoka Vinashaka. Mula Ajnana Shoka Vinashaka. Ajnana or Bhaya, these bad qualities arises only because of duality. When there is oneness, when oneness is realized, there is no bhaya, there is no ajnana. So Ganapati removes this bhaya, this ajnana from us. Mula ajnana shoka vinashaka. Mula kanda mukti pradayaka. This is again a direct reference of mukti that is granted by Ganapati. Then we have Sabalikrita Sarvajna Swabhava. The Eka Brahman manifests into the whole of the creation, and the whole creation, in all of the creation, the same Eka Brahman resides. So this profound Advaita concept is shown by Dikshitar in this one line. And another very beautiful kriti, Shankachakra Gadapanim on Tirumala Venkateshwara Swami. Dikshitar, even though it is a little out of topic, Dikshitar incorporates the detail of Tirupati Laddu as Amritasara Bhakshanam. Dikshitar shows a concept that is as lowly, as laukika as possible as Amritasara Bhakshanam, which is Laddu, which we really enjoy today, and also shows that the same Venkateshwara Swami is Sajatitadi Rahitam. He does not have any Dvaita Bhava. He is Purna Advaita Paradbrahma Swarupan. From the most gross matter, which is Laddu, to the subtlest Advaita Swarupam is there in the same Kirtana itself. So each Kirtana is a package. Similarly, today's Narasimha Jayanti, we cannot ignore Dikshitar's composition on Narasimha Swami. He addresses Narasimha as Parad Brahma Pucha. So in Narasimha Agacha, if I'm not wrong, Pucha is referred to as the axis around which the whole of creation survives. So Parad Brahma Pucha is Narasimha, around which the whole of the creation has developed. So this is the first Ganapati kritis that I told can be considered from the Ganapatya point of view. Shankachakra Gadapanim and Narasimha Agacha. There are many more kritis, Sri Rajagopala, Chetashri Balakrishnam. These can be considered from the Vaishnava point of view. From the Shaiva point of view, we have Chintaye Mahalinga Murtim. Chintaye Mahalinga Murtim Chidrupa Spurtim Sukirtim. This Chidrupa Spurtim is enough to show that Shiva himself is Advaita Swarupa. And in Ananda Natana Prakasham, we have Advaita Pratipadyam, direct reference to Advaita. And in another very less heard composition, Brihadisha Katakshene, Shiva is addressed, Brihadisha, Tanjavur, Periyakovil, Brihadisha is addressed as Aham Aham Iti Atma Rupa. So Shiva is addressed as the Parad Brahman there. So we have seen Ganapatya, Shaiva, Vaishnava. Next is Kaumara. As Nagaraj
This is central.
Seems to be his favorite deity. Although we have many kritis on Subramanya, the kriti that seems to be Dikshitar seems to have enjoyed the most seems to be Kumara Swaminam, because there are so many references to Advaita where he addresses Subramanya as Shruti Saram. So I think that one phrase will encompass everything. Shruti Saram, Purti Vidya Pradam, Tat Padam Murti Karam. Tat Padam is again that the word Tat is represented by Subramanya, Dikshitar says. So that is again an indicative of the Mahavakya, which is Tatvamasi. So I have not covered the Shakta tradition, but I will quickly move on to the Saura tradition. There appears to be only one Kirtana on Surya, which is the first of the Vara Kritis, Surya Murte. Usually we one thinks that Surya, he addresses Surya as Navagraha Shikha Mane, he is the head of the Navagrahas. But there is one phrase that Dikshitar we tend to ignore, but Dikshitar shows he is also the Parad Brahman. Karya Karanatmaka. That one word alone is enough, because Dikshitar, we all know, it was a Sri Vidya Upasaka. He was initiated into the esoteric worship of Devi, and Dikshitar was also strongly influenced by the Lalita Sahasranama. We have Karya Karna Nirmuktayai Namaha in Lalita Sahasranama. And the cause and effect, Karya and Karana, the head of this is the Godhead, is Parat Brahman. So Surya is addressed as Parat Brahman here. I think I'm taking lots of time, but Shakta concept would take lots of time, but I will quickly address upon 2 pointers and then we can move on to the next round. Advaita has many Vadas, and the Pratibimba Vada seems to be the foundation for the Shakta worship and the Shakta thought. Dikshitar refers this in many of his kritis in Tiruvarur and especially Devi-centered kritis. One major reference that we get is Chid Bimba, Pratibimbendu Bimba, Shri Kamalamba Jayati. The reflection of Chit on her that we also derive a reference from the Dakshinamurti Stotram is shown here. And also Chit Pratibimbe in Shri Mata in Begada Raga. So I think I have done justice, but I have not addressed the kriti on the pure Nirguna Brahman. The kriti is Sadhu Jana Chitta Sarasi Jodayam in the Raga Purna Panchamam. The Raga itself shows Purnatvam. Name of the Raga in itself has Purnatvam. There are many, just going through the Sahitya, we need not even understand the deep meaning of it. Will show so many references to Advaita. He does not refer any name of any deity here. He just tells Sakala Nishkala Rupam Adyam, Sachidananda Madhyam. So there is just only that experience of Brahman within him that he has shown us through this kriti. So even though there was, I think how just Shankara showed us the balance of bhakti and jnana, Dikshitar walked on the same way.
Thank you very much. That shows your passion for the topic that you have taken up. You have covered almost a very wide span of coverage within Dikshitar's kritis, all the Shanmatas and the Nirguna Brahma. Now we move on to the next important question, which is, because we are talking of music, very important question is the composition itself, the ragas, the music, how it is used. So with regard to Sadashiva Brahmendra, we do not have his own composition, music composition intact, but the various musicians have given different ragas to his kritis. How the ragas given to the different kritis of Sadashiva Brahmendrayati, they reflect Advaita Vedanta in the composition itself, in the composing style itself. Mridulaji will explain that.
There are only 24 compositions in the Kirtana format that are available to us of Sri Sadashiva Brahmendrayati. That way I must confess that the other two panelists are at a very great advantage. They have so many compositions to choose from, but here we have only 23 or 24 at most. And since these are mostly sung in the bhajana paddhati, bhajana sampradaya, in the nama sankirtanams and so on, various bhagavatars have handled them in various, giving them multiple shades, have given them so many ragas. But mostly in the Carnatic concert format, when we come to that, we see that some of the stalwart musicians like Dr. M. Balamurli Krishna Garu, Oleti Venkateshwarlu Garu, and we have also Sri Semangudi Srinivas Iyer, who have contributed a lot. They have composed, set to tune most of these compositions. And among the recent musicians, contemporary musicians, we have Sri R.K. Sriram Kumar sir, who has beautifully given his own understanding of the philosophy of the Sahityam in touches through the ragas that he has given to those kirtanams. So therefore we have so many versions of the same Kirtanam. For example, this Pibare Ramarasam is available in Yamuna Kalyani, but it has captivated the audience through Ahir Bhairav. Though it is a Hindustani imported raga from the Hindustani Sangeeta, still over and above Yamuna Kalyani, Ahir Bhairav seems to have conveyed the essence of this Sahityam is what I feel. And coming to Bruhi.
Can you please show the difference, these two, by singing?
Actually, I have learned the Ahir Bhairav only. I have faint memory of Yamuna Kalyani. I wouldn't want to go into that.
Okay.
And then we have the most popular Kriti, Sarvam Brahmamayam, that is in Madhuvanti. This particular Kirtanam, it is a revelation, it is a revelatory composition, I must say, just like Brahmaivaham Kila. And here he is wondering what is this Brahman? Everything is Brahman. It is, this entire world is Brahmamayam. And Kim Vachaniyam, Kim Avachaniyam, Kim Vachaniyam, Kim Avachaniyam, Kim Rachaniyam, Kim Arachaniyam, Sarvam Brahmamayam. So there is an emotional aspect to this particular Sahityam, although it is talking about the Brahmananda, it is Ananda, right? So that particular wonder and all those quality, those feelings are brought about by Madhuvanti. In general, I should say that all the Kirtanams of Sri Sadashiva Brahmendra have been set to not so classical ragas. We wouldn't find a Kirtanam in Bhairavi or Thodi or even Kalyani for that matter. We do have Gayati Vanamali, but it is a more lighter version of the Kalyani. But there is one Kriti which has been set to a heavy ragam, a major ragam of Carnatic style, that is Keeravani. Keeravani is a very sublime raga. It has been handled even by Tyagaraja to convey such a beautiful Sahityam. Kaliyunte kada galguno kamita phala da complete seriousness with this ragam, and I think it is most apt to appropriate to convey thoughts about Jiva Brahmaikya and Advaitic thoughts, Vedantic thoughts, and that's why I feel Sri Semmangudi Srinivas Iyer has aptly chosen this ragam to tune that Kirtanam on Adhyasa, Tadvad Jivatvam Brahmani. Tadvajivatvam Brahmani, Tadvajivatvam Yadvato ye Chandradvaitvam Yadvamukure Pratibimbatvam Tadvajivatvam Brahmani, Tadvajivatvam. Another important Tamil composer, Sri Gopalakrishna Bharati, has also used this Kriti to this particular ragam Keeravani in the Kriti. Innamum sandega padalamo Annamayam tanum kosham tanil Andanar mudal pulayar vareikum bhinna marave tonade தன்னை அறிகிற தவமே பெரிதென்று தரணியில் கோபால கிருஷ்ணன் சொன்னதெல்லாம் மருதயமாய இணையினவிதலைந்தாய் நீதான் இன்னமும் சந்தேக. So here again, since Gopala Krishna Bharati had Tyagaraja Swami as one of his inspirations, he addresses the Manas. Oh Manas, how can you still doubt when you very much know, having gone through the Shastras, you know that from the Annamaya Kosham, and when we take the Annamaya Kosham into consideration, all kinds of Jivarashis are just one. And Binam Arave Tonade Yenda Beda Madum Kanin. So Abheda, there is absolutely no difference that can be pointed out between all the Jivarashis. And Tannai Arigira Tavame Peridendri. That upasana that shows that the self-realization is the greatest austerity. So for such a kriti, even Gopala Krishna Bharati has used the raga Kiravani, and appropriately Sri Semmangudi has taken this raga for this kriti. And the famous composition Manasa Sancharari has been set to Sama. I don't think there are any other ragas, any other versions for this particular kriti. I have always heard it in Sama alone. And this raga, although it is known as Sama, the ancient name is Shyama, and it is one of those ragas that completely sets the dhyana mode, the contemplative mode, and brings Shanta Rasa basically. And Tyagaraja Swami himself has asked, Shantamule ka saukhyamule do. So he has used Sama for this kriti. So it is that evocative and that importantly conveying the mood of Shanta, and which is most important for going into the contemplative mode. So these are the few ideas that I wanted to share from how the recent musicians have appropriately given ragas to the compositions of Sri Sadashiva Brahmendra.
Okay, so now we move on to Dr. Radhika ji with the same question. How actually, with regard to Tyagaraja, there is no issue of multiple styles of composition. There is the Tyagaraja's own composition is well preserved. So how that is spiritual mood evoking, sadhana evoking, meditation evoking. Radhika ji will show with some examples of how those compositions have been made.
అది సుట్టు పెట్టండి. In I will sing some couple of compositions. First of all, I take Dvaitamu Sukhama, Advaitamu Sukhama. Dvaitamu Sukhama, Advaitamu Sukhama, Dvaitamu Sukhama, Advaitamu Sukhama, Dvaitamu Sukhama. In Anupallavi, Chaitanyama Vinu, Sarva Sakshi Vistaramu Ganu, Telpumu Nato, Dvaitamu Sukhama, Advaitamu Sukhama. In this composition, he mentions Rama as Chaitanyama Vinu, that consciousness, the witness to everything, that is Sarva Sakshi. To explain in detail Vistaramugan, that is Vistaramugan, which path is superior to self-realization. And in another Kriti, Jnanamusagarada, in Purva Kalyani, Tyagaraja pleads for the knowledge of Jivatma and Paramatma. When he says, Jnanamusagarada, Jnanamusagarada, Garuda Gamadavada, Jnanamusagarada, Nidamamuche Namadi, Nidamamuche Namadi, Nirmalamayu Nadi Musagara. Look at Sangatis in Pallavi changes in Dvaitama Sukhama. If we take Dvaitama Sukhama, the Sangatis are for Dvaitama Sukhama, Dvaitam only, not in Advaita. Dvaitamu Sukhama, Dvaitamu Sukhama, Dvaitamu Sukhama, Dvaitamu Sukhama, Advaitamu Sukhama, Advaitamu Sukhama. To take Advaitamu, there is no Sangati. For Advaitamu, there is no change. There is no Sangati in Advaitamu. So, and coming to this Jnanamusagarada, Paramatmudu, Jivatmudu, Padunalugu Lokamulu, Nara Kinnara Kimpurushulu, Naradadi Mululu, Paripurna Nishkalanka, Niravadhi Sukhadayaka Vara, Tyagaraja Varamu, Tanani, Jnanamusagarada. In the above composition, Tyagaraja first qualifies himself for the realization of truth. He says that by chanting Rama's name, his heart has become pure. Adi Shankara's Aparokshan Bhuti says that only the pure in heart should constantly and with all effort meditate upon for attaining self-realization. Further, he puts forth the classic Advaita philosophy when he says that Jivatma, in the Kriti Jivatma, 14 worlds, humans, Kinnaras, Kimpurushas, Narada, and other stages, etc., are all but the same, and that everything in the is the self. పరమాత్ముడు జీవాత్ముడు పదునాలుగు లోకములు నరకిన్నర కిం పురుషుడు నరదాది మునులు పరిపూర్ణ నిష్కళంక నిరవధి సుఖదాయక పరత్యాగర జాచిత వారముద జ్ఞానే జ్ఞానమోసగ గరుడ గమన పద సుజ్ఞానమోసగర
Thank you very much, Radhika Garu. With the same question, we move on to Karthik Garu. How the compositions, how the notes have been used, the ragas and their compositions have been used to evoke a spiritual experience in Dikshitar's kritis.
This is a wonderful question, and I must say I have been fortunate to learn from gurus who have always insisted on the confluence of Sangeeta and Sahitya. They always believed in what Kalidasa said, Vakartha vivasamprukto Vakartha prativakte Jakadav Pitaro Vande Parvati Parameshwaro. Like Vak and Artha, like Shiva and Shakti, Sangeeta and Sahitya cannot be separated. So, and especially for even if we take Dikshitar or Shyama Shastri or Tyagaraja, we cannot imagine that stand-alone piece of Sahitya without the Raga Bhava. We cannot even imagine a Rave Himagiri Kumari without the Todi. We cannot imagine Kamakshi without the Varali, without the Begada. Just how Radhika ma'am sang that Purvi Kalyani, whether a layman understands so much philosophy or not, that Purvi Kalyani will stay within him.
Yes.
So that is the importance of Sangeeta has on everybody. Few might understand Vedantic concepts, few might not. So when coming to Dikshitar, the appropriateness of choosing a raga or a tala has always existed. Throughout his compositions, we can see that. This has, I feel, in my little observation, I feel this has reached the peak in his magnum opus work, Kamalamba Navavarna Kritis. So right from the Dhyana Kriti till the Mangala Shri Raga Kriti, the choice of ragas has is very very strongly visible on how much importance he has given to the choice of ragas, the choice of tala, swarakshara, gamakas, and all. So the first example, which also happens to be my favorite example, is Sri Kamalambikaya, which is the third Avarana Kriti. So in the Pallavi, we notice the beautiful experience of Advaita. Shri Kamala Ambikaya Katakshitoham Amba Sachidananda Paripurna Brahma Ananda Paripurna Brahmasmi. when we listen to the recordings of greats like Dr. D.K. Jayaraman and all, they sing multiple Sangadis in Sri Kamalambikaya Katakshi Toham, but they never touch the word Sachidananda Paripurna Brahmasmi. And just that Brahmasmi, there is no movement. Everything merges into the Eka, everything merges into the Parat Brahman. There is no Gamaka there. There is just that plain sustained note. So to show that Parat Brahmatvam, to show that Advaita Bhavam, Dikshitar uses Shankara Bharanam in that way. And it is also aptly tuned to Shankara Bharanam as the third Avarana Kriti, because the second Avarana Kriti is in Kalyani. When we count from the first, we find that Prathama Avarana is in Ananda Bhairavi, because the mantra for the goddess has Ananda Bhairava as the Rishi. So it is aptly, and before we begin any puja or japa, we begin with the nyasas. So the nyasa involves the Rishi. So the Rishi is invoked first through the inculsion of the raga. This can be seen in Kamalamba Samrakshatumam, which has Ananda Bhairavi as the raga. Similarly, the second Kirtana, Kamalamba Bhajare, is in Kalyani, because in the Lalita Trishati, Kakara Rupaya Namaha, Kalyanyai Namaha. The second Nama is Kalyani. So this shows Dikshitar's knowledge of Lalita Trishati. The second Nama is Kalyani Trishati. So here the second Avarana is set to Kalyani Raga. When it comes to Avarana details, the second Avarana has 16 petals, Shodasa Dala. This is set in Aditala, Rendu Kala. Aditala has 8 aksharas. When you put in Rendu Kala, it becomes 16 aksharas, pertaining to the 16 petals. So when you come to the third Avarana, which I sang a little bit in Shankara Bharanam, it is in Rupakatala. Rupakatala can be sung in a beat of 3 or beat of 6, depends on the parampara. So the Avarana 3, 6 and 9, Shankara Bharanam, Punnaga Varali and 9 Ahiri. These 3 are correctly set in Rupakatala because these are 3 and multiples of 3. And Devi herself is Tripura Sundari. And Tripura, the name Tripura itself denotes the Parat Brahmatvam as listed in the various Tantra Upanishads such as Tripura Upanishad, Bhavana Upanishad and all. So this is endless. When we go to the fourth Avarana, the Tala is Atatala. Atatala has 14 syllables, and this is Chaturdasha Prakara, has triangles in that Avarana. So similarly, the fifth Avarana is Bahirdasha. There are outer 10 triangles. So outer 10 is shown by Jampatala, which has 10 aksharas. So the inculsion of Sangeeta is so deep that unless one has a little bit of knowledge into the aspects that Dikshitar is talking about, one finds it very difficult to note. Another thing that I would touch upon that I already spoke about in the first is the gunas of Parat Brahman as listed by Adi Shankaracharya, which is Abheda, Shuddha, Nitya, Buddha. And Dikshitar shows his strong adherence to Advaita by showing that punch on Bhairavi there. It is not that meek Bhairavi that he starts in Chintaya Makandamulam. It is not it is not the meek lower octave Bhairavi. The Bhairavi is an upper octave and it punches right through us so much that we will never forget these concepts. Abheda Nitya Shuddha Buddha Mukta Sachidananda Maya Para Advaita Spurte. The Bhairavi is so fresh and it is so impactful that you will never forget Bhairavi, nor you will forget that. Similarly, the experience of Brahman, just as I quoted Chintaya Makanda Mulakandam.
There is some problem with your audio, Karthik. Your audio has gone low.
Hello, am I audible now?
Yeah. In any case, anyway, we are coming to the conclusion of this panel discussion. So thank you very much, Karthik ji. And now we have seen how the three stalwart musician, musicologist, scholars have shown the depth of Advaita both in text and the composition, both in Sangita and Sahitya, both in Dhatu and Matu. How Advaita and Sadhana, also Advaita Sadhana, through the composition style, has been infused through the Vagekaras and their kritis. Thank you, all the three panelists. We are fortunate to have the three gurus, Sangita gurus, as our guides today with regard to understanding Carnatic music and Advaita in the Carnatic music, Vagekara kritis. Namaste.